Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our weekly conversation on buying a business, fixing it up, and selling it, and anywhere from a distressed business to a good one. First thing we're going to do is talk about a couple of current results, things we're doing. Remember that we're one of the very few people that actually do what we get on the teleconference and talk about. We're in the trenches every day. The first thing I want to talk to you about today is bring you up to date on a wonderful life. Now, you know that I bought a couple of small firms and we brought the sales and right after we bought it, we cut it to it ended up getting cut all the way down to a $500,000 in annualized sales. Now it's worked its way back up to 1 million at the end of 13 months of ownership. That we're making 10,000 a month in profit. That's come from doing two things: buying three distressed companies where we got walkaway money for the off-balance sheet assets. To us, off-balance sheet are the who do you know list. Who do you know that's a client of yours? Who do you know that works for you? Who do you know that sends you referrals? And none of that is on the books, except, of course, the cash flow from clients. But the important point is we've got the business back up to 10,000 a month in profit, $1 million a year, but it's going to get even bigger. Now, interestingly enough, when you buy a business, if you want, you can pick up some of the employees. And the last one we picked up, we took the manager and brought him in as a salesman. Well, this guy is an absolute rocket on fire. He's so excited to be able to actually get out and do things and then be able to deliver it without having to be the one that stays up all night making it work. So we're very, here's what he's got going. We're ready to make a tremendously big jump. Now, you'll remember from our previous conversations, I'm running three companies here. My goal by the end of this year is to have each one at $25,000 in profit. And I'm sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. To get each one at 25,000 in profit. And the home healthcare company is about ready to do it. Now, we've not closed this deal, but our salesperson that came over from an acquisition has just put together a good staffing where we're actually going to be staffing for a clinic and a hospital this one contract. And the only reason we haven't put it together yet is because we now have to ramp up. Kristen and I put in $20,000 more yesterday because along with our 40,000 we have in the bank, we needed another 20 to be able to ramp up to start the contract. But it's going to drop another 14,000 a month to the bottom line, and so we're there. Here it is in April, and we've hit our annual goal. The money and the profit won't really come in until May and June, but within 6 months, we've hit our 2014 goal at the home health care company to get to $25,000 a month in profit. That means we'll take it from a $0 value business when we bought it for nothing in February 25th or 27th of 2013. That by February of 2015, at 250 or at 25,000 a month in profit, the company will probably be about 1.2 million in resale value at that time, maybe 900,000. But isn't that a great jump in equity? And in reality, with none of my own money, the $20,000 we're going to have to throw in is going to be recovered within 60 days as the billing catches up with the payroll. We upfront the billing and then wait for payroll, or upfront the payroll, wait for billing. But what a perfect example. And so now Wonderful Life and Paperless Overnight are very close to the pieces are in place. Those two companies are going to hit 25. Now the only thing I do is work on LCP, the training company doing this class, and we'll have reached our goal that we're making three businesses with 25,000 a month net. Now, I bring this up because we're doing these things that we talk about for you to do. And of course, remember, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in at any time. And if you want to talk to me about a deal that you're working on, send me an email. Now, if you're in our mastermind group, call me on the phone. or call Melanie and she'll set a time and we'll be able to chat and look at the numbers. Next thing I want to do, if you don't mind, is I want to show you a couple of interesting deals that have come across my desk. Now, I'm not pitching these deals, but I'm giving you this information because uh, this is everywhere. These opportunities are everywhere. In my opinion, the most undervalued asset, the biggest bargain on the market today is to buy an existing business. And I'm on the phone with a business broker from New Mexico. Travis tripped this up, and he's got a wetlands nursery for sale. As a matter of fact, they even sent this note over to Richard Robinson saying, "Do you want this thing? Because this is amazing." Um, okay, so here's the deal. The company's doing 700,000 in sales, has 200,000 in cost of goods, and that's cost of goods and the yard labor are all worked into that number. It's dropping $500,000 to the bottom line. Here's why it makes so much money, because the EPA has dictated that whenever there's a movement of sagebrush or pinions or scrub oak to do a state contract or a federal contract, that the contractor has to replace the fauna exactly the way it was before the construction started. So that means they take an aerial photograph of an acre of land, count and plot the sagebrush, and then they go back to this guy and they buy the sagebrush. They buy the sagebrush to put it right back in the same spot. It's like, are you kidding me? How, well, every time the government passes a regulation, some people go broke, some people get rich. This guy's getting rich. Now, he wants, it's doing 700,000 annual sales, $500,000 net profit. He's asking for 1.6. Includes 200,000 equipment, 200,000 inventory, 4.5 acres, 2-bedroom rental house. It's 100% wholesale business, so he doesn't have a sales team. All he does is sell to large contractors doing government work, and this government work is planned out years in advance, so he knows exactly where his future revenue is coming from. Because we're going to pick up the real estate. Now, I'm not going to buy this. I'm just telling you that here's what I would do if I were in Albuquerque today. I've got 3 good companies that are, between the 3 of them, are going to be knocking down $75,000 a month net profit. If I keep my attention focused on these companies for the rest of this year, I don't want to lose that income stream. That's a good income stream for me. And so I'm not going to take my eye out the ball. If I lived in Albuquerque, or if I had someone who could go to Albuquerque that would run this business, I would buy it. And here's the reason why. We can probably get the place for 1.5, not 1.65. The reason is we'll get the 10% discount. Is that it's been on the market for several quarters and they've not even got a nibble. If I went to the SBA, I could get financing. The broker told me I already ran it by 2 local banks, and they said the banks would run the deal based on the numbers, of course, depending on the buyer. But the banks would finance this because it is such a solid operation. Go to the SBA, though, I'll need $300,000 down, 20%. If I can come up with 400 and maybe 500, the owner would carry the project. So there is going to be some cash down required, but keep listening to this. So if I do the SBA deal, I come up with 300 down out of my pocket. I'm going to have a $1.2 million loan, 10 years, 5.5%, $156,000 a year in debt service. And so now we take our $500,000 of profit. So we're going to take our $500,000 of profit, and I'll subtract the debt service, and then I'm going to allow a 30% of net profit to a manager on a performance base. And that means I'm going to hire somebody and say, you run this, you get 1/3 of what comes out of here. 1/3 of the profit is yours for running this. Right now it's making $500,000. I'm going to end up paying you about $150,000. Now it won't be quite 1/3 or 30% because the $500,000, because I got a little interest on the loan, etc., that's going to kind of foul the numbers, but that's the range. I can bring a manager and say, if you do exactly what this company did last year, you'll make about $150,000. Now look at this, though. My total take-home pay for running this operation, Out of that half million, I've got to pay 156 in debt and 150 for a manager, and that leaves me 194 a year. And I'm an absentee owner that put up a $300,000 investment. This means that in 18 months, I've recovered my capital investment and I own this place minus the payments going to the SBA. Now, what if you don't have 300,000? And this is something that we keep coming back to. Sometimes we don't have the money that we need to do these deals. So going to an investor on this is going to be tricky because there's really no gigantic upside realistically. You're not going to go in, fix this company, double the profits. You're not going to go in and set up a marketing plan and skyrocket the sales. Pretty much this is a good running little cash cow company. So if you went to an investor, they're going to want a 30% return compounded year over year. So if I get 300,000 down payment from an investor in 36 months, they're going to expect 650,000 in return. Well, yuck. I don't want to do that. I do not want to go to a angel investor or a venture capitalist or someone to pick up the down payment. Now, I could borrow the down payment. Maybe I've got a LOC on my home. If I could borrow the 300,000 at 18%, then it's going to give me 127,000 a year over 3 years of debt service, additional debt service. So if I did that, now I'm only going to be netting 67,000 if I have to borrow the down payment because I don't have it. But that's only going to be for 3 years, and it's going to jump back up to my 194, 200,000 a year profit. I could suffer that to get in with nothing down and only make 67 a year for 3 years with the idea, because I know the business is going to be there. The land doesn't move, and God knows the EPA is not going to quit. They're going to get more onerous every year. So I don't see where this business is going to go away. This could be a death do you part business. You're going to own this until the day you're cold. Okay, now there was one last thing though, that if I couldn't come up with the 300,000, I could go out and resell 25% of the business for 300,000. Now this is going to take some effort on my part. I'm going to have to really hustle to find somebody that wants to buy 1/4 of the company for cash. Because remember, they're making the whole down payment on this thing. But if I allocate to them 1/4 of my profit, they're going to be able to pick up on their investment 48,000 a year. That is their projected return. Now that still gives me 145,000 of profit. But because I'm giving 25% of my net over to the investor, that gives my partner a 16% annual return, plus as the company grows in equity, because there will be, of course, the normal 5 or 8 or 10 or 15% growth in the value of the business every year, depending on what kind of manager I've got over there, what kind of oversight I'm doing. But if I can continue that, there will be growth in equity. And remember, I gave them 1/4 of the company for 300,000. Well, I paid 1.5 million for this company. So on day number one, their equity is not worth 300,000. It's worth 375. So here's how I got the investor to do the deal. You're going to get 16% cash on cash return. Your 300,000 will immediately turn into a $375,000 equity, and over time you'll get to share in the depreciation on capital equipment, etc. You'll get to share in the pass-through interest deductions, and hopefully this becomes worth more money over time. Now, that is a good deal for somebody with $300,000 sitting in the bank or an IRA right now at 1 or 2%, because it's all secured by this business. But look at what happens in your situation. If you would be willing to spend 100 to 200 hours a year in Albuquerque running this business, because you cannot do this from Minneapolis. I can't do it from Tucson. You got to be there. You're giving this guy 1/3 of the gross or 1/3 of the net that's running it, but you still have to have your fingers on the pulse. But that 100 or 200 hours will give you 145,000 of cash flow as an absentee owner, and by doing the partner deal, you put no cash out of your pocket. So you're going to make 145,000 a year for your 100 hours or 200 hours at the most, and all for realistically just putting a deal together like this. These are everywhere. And the interesting thing is this business actually has some some upside, but it's not included in the pro forma or the sale price. Last year they had a one-time order for $2 million, and it added $1.5 million to the owner's bottom line. So he's retiring, and he's going to get out with this cash now. So if he's got $1.5 million from 1 year of profit, sells the business for $1.5 million. He said, "Who the hell would ever think you'd make $3 million selling sagebrush? Not me, for one. I can tell you that. My whole life, I spent my whole life with an axe in the field, cutting the damn stuff down and cussing it to hell. And here a guy's making $3 million in 2013 and 14, selling the junk." So anyway. The guy who bought the $2 million order says there's 4 more orders sitting out there on a highway reconstruction plan over the next 10 years. But, you can never plan on that long-term stuff, so it's not in the pro forma, it's not in the books, it's not in the price. It's a one-time event. There might be 4 more events. My whole point of the story is that if you keep your eyes open and look, you're going to be amazed at how many good deals you can come up with. And this is not a distressed company. This is a strong company, and the owner's going to stay behind. Now let me tell you another one, though. Oh, by the way, if you want to know about this company, send me a note, and I will send you the NDA that the broker sent to me, and you can talk to the broker direct. I don't get anything out of this, I don't participate in this. It's just a really interesting, it was just an interesting project that came across the desk that if I had someone that wanted to do it, my son already told me he doesn't want to work the land. We learned that when we were over in the walnut tree plantation. We got back out in a year and a half because he didn't want to go out and trim walnut trees. I don't have anybody to do this. I certainly can't send my wife, and my youngest son at 4 is too young, so... Okay, I might give it to my daughter. I didn't even think about that. I got a 30-year-old daughter that would move to Albuquerque. Okay, anyway, I'm rambling. If you have an interest, let me know. Here's another one. I got a call from a guy in Connecticut, another business broker. He's got 4 brothers running a chain link manufacturing business. I didn't even know chain link fence was manufactured in the U.S. I thought it was all in India, but I guess the labor or the freight for sending this stuff out is so high that the American manufacturing is actually... more doable. So in Connecticut, running a chain link manufacturing business, dad dies several years ago. The company equally distributed, 4 sons, goes from $2.5 million in sales to $800,000 in sales as the 4 sons bicker. And they now realize that the company is now going to probably go under. Well, right now, even at $800,000 in sales, they're making $250,000. They want out. They will sell the company for $150,000. Now, these deals show up all the time. And if you're in Connecticut, you want to send me an email, because if you can find anybody that can go down and run this, and you might even be able to get one of the 4 brothers to stay. But a company generating $250 a year in profit, and you can buy it for $150. That means you can probably borrow 100 of the $150. Maybe you could borrow 100%. I don't know. But this is a cash cow. And anybody that's not bickering with the other 3 brothers is going to be able to take this company back to where it was at $2.5 million. All this manufacturing moved to China over the last 10 years, 20 years, but it's moving back. It's moving back because the Chinese now are reaching pay parity with Americans. The Chinese Army no longer owns all the factories and use forced labor at $1 a day. That's why China's always been able to undercut us on cost, because they have 100 million people in the Army get paid $1 a day, and that's who works at the factories. All the factories were owned by the Army. Well, they've divested that to capitalist The capitalists went out and hired people from the countryside. The country bumpkins are no longer willing to work for $1 a day. They want $5 and $6 an hour. Well, their cost, when you include shipping, is now matching what it costs to build in America. So manufacturing is moving back here, and it's not happening like with a steam engine, but it's happening greater than any of us know or anticipate. So this is another really interesting business that somebody could pick this up, run it on the side, pay the 150 for the company, and drop 200, maybe only 100,000 a year profit to the bottom line after you pay your managers. But for goodness sake, would you buy a company for 150,000 that was going to, even after everything, drop 100 to the bottom line? And the answer is, of course. Are you crazy? I recover my cost in 18 months, my capital cost in 18 months, and then it's till death do us part. I didn't know that chain link fence anyone even used it anymore. But I guess the stuff is just hotter than a $2 pistol. And sold all over, especially on the eastern seaboard. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up, these ideas, is that last week we started with the step-by-step process to build a company that can run by itself while growing each year, and that we're doing this ourselves in our companies. We're writing a strategic plan, which is a business plan, and we're molding that into the tactical operations, the tactical steps of the operations manual, and putting that all into one great big binder. I've got 3 goals. I want to make myself redundant. If I'm redundant, then I've got time to go buy a chain link fence company. If I've got to sit there and work in the office every day to keep the place from falling apart, then you can kiss those other deals goodbye. So we're writing these marketing plans for all 3 of our companies, the strategic, operation, business, finance, everything in one great big binder, so that we can get our operations to 25,000 a month or more. That's exactly where you want to be. That might not be your number. You have to work on your own number. And I strongly recommend against working on the number called world domination. Then we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this. You've heard me tell you multiple times that when I have $1 million of clear, clean cash in the bank and 25,000 a month, that I am just so solidly guaranteed it's going to be there till I die, then working at that moment becomes totally optional. Now we expect to make more than 25, but when I look at a business or look at a revenue stream, I've got to look 20 years out, because at 60 years old, what am I going to be like at 85? I can't go get a job. And so I've got to know that income stream is going to be there long term. So I want to create a dependable cash cow out of every business I go into, and I want to document how we do things so that if I do sell the company, the buyer will pay me a bigger multiple because the instructions are there on how to run it. If I do hire a performance-paced manager and let them earn their way to 51% ownership, while I'm protected by a good management contract so I don't get screwed with that, then I want the manager to know exactly what my expectations and processes are so they can run the business. And that's why last week I gave you on the download the first section. And remember, I work all my businesses in 8 sections. Start with strategic planning. Then I moved to lead generation. Last week I gave you the strategic plan, heavy on the lean canvas concept. You can go in and download this. This is an example. Now, here's the bad news. This is going to be a ton of work. Standardizing a business is an ungodly amount of work, but without it, you're going to spend the next 10 years doing exactly what you did in the last 10 years, and you're going to have the exact same results. And so as somebody buying a business, we want to be good at this. We either want to bring in people that can do this for us, or write this stuff ourselves so we can bring in people that are just slightly less paid that can implement the plan. I mean, you can hire really high, top-notch people that are real smart for $125, $150 a year, and they'll figure all this out standing on top of a ball that's being balanced on a 2x4. Or you can hire average people and tell them what needs to be done, and they'll implement it with excellence. But either way, you've got to learn how to delegate and do this efficiently and effectively. Manuals help us at it. But if you're not delegating the daily work, then you're going to be stuck doing the same thing all the time. When I started thinking like this and became a CEO, my life changed. I found out that I'm working on a totally different set of tasks now. For example, in this past week, I spent 2 hours a day in lunch meetings, and those were geared toward talking to acquisitions. And the 2 hours, drive over there, do the lunch, ask the questions, make the notes, drive back, that sort of thing. And I do this every day. And last week we talked about this, that it's running me $1,600 a month in credit card charges, but we've picked up 3 companies. We picked up a new software that we use. We got a great salesman who got a wonderful life rocking and rolling now. And we've picked up 3 or 4 marketing concepts for AWL that we never thought about, referral sources that we never even touched, and a new direction of billing going in the staffing business. Not staffing meaning that somebody calls us up and said, my nurse isn't going to show up today at 2 o'clock. Can you send a nurse? And then we have to scramble like crazy to go find a nurse. But we learned all that at these lunch meetings over the last several months. It's been one of the most powerful things we can do. And if you don't remember how to put this together, go back to the Buy Your Competitors, the series of 3 videos on that, and run through that, because it's just a simple, easy, money-making project. I spend about an hour and a half a day working on this operations manual, and I do this so that my staff will know what needs to get done. I spend 1 hour a day working with my team so they know what I expect. I dump a lot of projects on my people, especially my interns, and I need to spend time with them showing them what the instructions meant, the reason we do it, and assigning to them the responsibility for the results, not the responsibility for the tactical steps. I said, here's what we want to have happen. Make this happen. This is my best idea in this binder, but if my idea is wrong, fix it, change the binder. I spend an hour a day on the phone or in person talking to financial resources or the outsourced bookkeeping company, which happens to be my wife, consultants, vendors, people that are stakeholders in our success. I spend a lot of time with those people saying, what can we do to make this better? What have you seen other people do? What does this mean that you're doing for me now? And some of that can be delegated, but for the most part, that's a CEO's job. And then, of course, I spend every day about a half an hour talking to my top 20% customers. How can we be more meaningful to you? Now, that works out to about 6 hours a day, so I'm running 3 companies. All 3 will be at $25,000 a month net profit by the end of the year, but I'm still able to keep my workload from 10 to 4. So it's a little bit different being a CEO and a little bit different thinking. And I know most of us on the phone own 1 small business or 2. We're looking for other ideas to buy additional companies. And that's going to come from, number 1, changing the way you run your own operation. Start thinking of it as a business and not a job or a practice. And once you do that, then you have the strength to step up and go to the next job. Well, today I want to introduce to you the leads and systems, the joint vendor referral systems that we put together. Now, last week I said there's a list of 100 marketing ideas on your customer hub. You can tap it and download those. In our own business, we picked 8 out of that 100. Now, mostly this is instinct. It's from our lean canvas. What's our market segment? How do we reach the market segment? Interestingly, very little money being spent today on advertising. The advertising has become less and less effective. The unknown and unexpected consequence of everybody having access to the internet all the time is that, we have become more dependent on getting a referral to work for somebody before we hire someone. Hey, I've got this problem. Who do you know? We're more dependent on that than we've ever been in my adult life, and that goes back to the late 60s. And we're using communication online to get information from people that we know. So we've just shifted away. We're currently shifting away from this. Blasting advertising all over, running ads in the paper, etc. The truth is, it's just not that effective. And so these are the 8 things that we're doing. It all boils down to run some junk on the internet, A. B, find out who's got my customer in their database. So if there's somebody out there that's selling, and now this is on Lonesome Cowboy Publishing, if there's somebody out there selling the person who wants to start a business or buy a business, and they might be selling them anything, I want to go meet that person because they already know my customers. And I don't care what it takes to get that relationship going, even if they give away 100% of my profit for the first 6 months, I want them to introduce me to their customers so that I can get these customers long term without shooting a shotgun in the dark at a red moon up in the sky and hoping that a good fat duck falls out. That's just not going to happen anymore. So, the problem though with all this hot talk, I mean, this, you can tell that I'm really fired up about the value of putting together a operations manual. The problem with all this is the job just seems way too big, and there's no way we're going to get it done. Casey will listen to you. That's fun. We like it, but for God's sakes, buddy, are you serious? You want me to sit down and start documenting how we run our company so I can clean this company up, so I can go in and buy another company and clean that one up? This is just way too big a job. So this week, I'm going to break the gigantic job into some segments for you. I'll go ahead and post what we wrote, and we wrote a long, detailed process. Maybe I can even pull it up here. And maybe not. Oh, here it is. Okay. This is the instruction manual for those 8 simple ways to generate business. And I mean, there's pages and pages and pages here of forms and tasks and instructions and flowcharts and check boxes. And the truth is, see everywhere it's yellow highlighted? That's something that my interns have to fill in because it was unnecessary for me to write that. They're doing the job, so they might as well be the one that fills it in. That's a gigantic job to sit down and do all that. It only has to be done one time. Now the work is going to be delegated to finish the plan up. Now the work to implement our marketing is going to be delegated, but it's too big a job to sit down, so I'm going to chunk it up for you. First thing you'll find this week is a 1-page questionnaire. And it'll be centered around the lean canvas, but just on 1 page, tell me what kind of business you want to start. And then I'd like to send you the next thing, 8 pages of questions, one based on each of those arrows in the cycle, the business cycle. And then once we've gone through 1 page, this is who we are. Second task, here's what I know about finding leads. Here's what I know about getting the product out the door. Here's what I know about getting the finances in control and the reporting right, etc. Once you've gone through those pages, then all we have to do is break that down and start writing in the details. It'll make it far, far easier. And giving you my work as an example is certainly going to help. And then you can start filling in the blanks. And of course, you start with the pigs. People ask me, what do you organize first? If you're going to organize your business, what do you do first? I said, what's making the phone ring? When we bought AWL, they had 32 phone lines, and every single one of them was lit up like a Christmas tree in there. And I said, why would so many people call us? And the company was in disarray. People were begging to get service. And I said, why don't we just fix the way we run this company, and we can cut down to 2 phone lines? And that's exactly what we did. So we had to get in and change some things fast, but you always start with the things that are bugging you the most, and that's what you organize, and then you go back to the things that add value. This will be hard the first time. I promise the second business you buy is going to be a lot easier. If you come out to Las Vegas, and Melanie's going to be sending out information to this, spend a couple days, and we'll actually start writing this for you as we talk more about some of these great big deals that are sitting out here, like buying a chain link fence or a sagebrush company or a healthcare company in your town. These opportunities are everywhere. So I appreciate you being on the phone today. Thank you for joining us. We had a great crowd. I saw a couple of good questions, and most of them need to be answered directly. Yeah, they all do. So I'm just going to answer you uh, by email after today's call. If you have any other questions or anything you want to talk about, shoot me a note, and we'll get back to you today. Okay, thank you, everyone. And next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about building this plan. We're going to be working on building your business model over the next 8 weeks. And then we're going to go back to finding deals, finding people, finding money. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.